Let me ask you something. Have you ever noticed how much time people waste complaining? How much energy they burn trying to explain themselves to people who will never understand them? And here's the truth. Every complaint makes you smaller. Every explanation makes you weaker. If you want to rise, if you want to own your life, there are 2 rules you must tattoo into your soul. Never complain. Never explain. Every time you complain, you surrender a piece of your power. Think about it. Complaining is nothing more than a declaration of helplessness. It's standing in front of life and saying, I can't do anything about this, so I'll just talk about it. But talking doesn't solve. Complaining doesn't transform. It doesn't move you forward. It anchors you deeper into the problem. The moment you put your energy into a complaint, you've already lost the battle, because instead of building solutions, you're feeding the very thing that's breaking you down. Life will test you. It will push you into corners you never asked for. It will slam doors you thought would stay open forever. But here's the truth. Life isn't asking you to whine about it. Life is asking, what will you do now? And if your first instinct is to complain, then you're handing life the power to dictate how far you go. Complaining is like watering weeds. The more attention you give the pain, the stronger it grows. The stronger it grows, the more it suffocates the flowers of progress that could have bloomed. In its place, look at the people you admire. Leaders, visionaries, trailblazers. Do you ever hear them wasting breath on complaints? No, they face storms too. They face betrayals, failures, heartbreaks. But instead of complaining, they redirect. They turn that same energy into action. They don't say, why me? They say, watch me. And that's the difference. That's the reason they stand where they stand, while others stay stuck in the same cycle of negativity, wondering why their lives never move. Complaining doesn't just steal your own strength. It steals the respect of others. Every time you open your mouth to complain, you're signaling weakness, signaling defeat. People may nod, they may sympathize, but deep down, they lose trust in your ability to rise. Respect doesn't come from words. It comes from resilience. It comes from refusing to waste time blaming, and instead using every ounce of your voice to declare possibility. Complaining pushes people away. Action pulls them closer. Action earns trust. Action earns respect. And let's not ignore this truth. Complaining rewires your brain for failure. The more you complain, the more your mind learns to look for what's wrong. Instead of what's possible, it becomes a habit, a lens through which you see the world. Suddenly, no victory feels big enough, no blessing feels bright enough, no opportunity feels worthy enough. Because your mind is addicted to problems, and like every addiction, it destroys from within. But the good news? The same brain that can be trained to complain can be trained to act. The same voice that spreads helplessness can spread courage. The same energy that fuels negativity can build empires. So when life gives you that next challenge, and it will, pause before you complain. Remember what's at stake. Your power, your respect, your future. Instead of feeding the problem, starve it. Instead of amplifying what's broken, amplify what's possible. Shift from the voice of complaint to the voice of command, because the world doesn't need another echo of problems. It needs a force of solutions, and that force can be you if you refuse to let a single complaint leave your lips. Respect is not demanded, it is earned, and one of the fastest ways to lose it is by constantly complaining. When you walk into a room and your first instinct is to highlight everything that's wrong, what people notice is not your strength, but your inability to handle life with dignity. Complaining shrinks your presence. It strips away the authority you could have had. Instead of being seen as someone who can face challenges, you're seen as someone consumed by them. Respect is born in resilience, not in repeated negativity. The truth is, no one is inspired by a complainer. People may sympathize with you for a moment. They may pat your back and nod, but deep down, they're distancing themselves. Why? Because constant complaining is toxic energy. It drags everyone into the mud of hopelessness. Leaders, creators, visionaries, these people don't want to be around someone who only points out the cracks in the wall. They want to be around someone who finds a way to build a door through it. Respect is reserved for the problem solvers, the doers, the ones who rise even when it hurts. Think about workplace. Imagine two people face the same setback. One spends hours complaining about how unfair it is, while the other quietly gets to work and finds a way through, who earns respect, who gets remembered. It's never the complainer. It's the one who turns frustration into fuel. That's the kind of person people admire, the kind they follow, the kind they trust. Complaining destroys credibility. Solutions build it. Respect also comes from self-control. Complaining is often a knee-jerk reaction. It's unfiltered frustration spilling out. But true strength lies in restraint, in choosing your words with precision, in refusing to give problems the satisfaction of your voice. When you hold back the urge to complain, when you channel that energy into creating instead, people notice. They may not say it out loud, but they respect you for it, because restraint is rare, and what is rare is always valued. And here's the harsh truth. When you complain too much, people stop listening. Your voice loses weight. It blends into the background noise. But when you choose silence over whining and action over excuses, your voice gains gravity. When you finally do speak, people lean in because they know you don't waste words. Respect isn't about volume, it's about value. The less you complain, the more your words carry weight. Every time you refuse to complain, you're sending a silent message. I am bigger than this problem. And that message is what earns you respect, even from those who may not like you. They may not agree with you, they may even oppose you, but they cannot deny you, because respect isn't about being liked, it's about being recognized as someone who rises above noise, someone who handles storms without screaming about the rain. And that kind of strength is unforgettable. Explaining yourself might seem harmless, even polite, but at its core, it is a symptom of insecurity. When you find yourself repeatedly clarifying your choices, your actions, or your beliefs to people, what you're really saying is, I need you to approve of me. And the moment you put your worth in the hands of someone else's approval, you've weakened your foundation. Confidence doesn't need validation. Real power doesn't bow to opinion. The more you explain, the more you reveal that you're not standing firmly in who you are. Think about it. How many times have you caught yourself giving reasons for decisions that were entirely yours to make? Why you didn't attend an event? Why you left a relationship? Why you took a risk in your career? And why do you do it? Because you fear judgment. You hope that if you explain enough, people will nod, understand, and stop questioning you. But here's the hard truth. They won't. Those who want to judge you will judge you anyway, no matter how carefully you lay out your reasoning. And those who already respect you, they don't need an explanation to stand by you. When you live in the habit of over-explaining, you hand your critics the steering wheel of your life. You're essentially saying, I need you to agree with my choices for me to keep moving. And that is dangerous, because the moment they disagree, you freeze, you doubt yourself. You start questioning the very decisions you once felt sure about. That's how dreams die, not by failure, but by hesitation. And hesitation is born in the need to explain. People who own themselves don't over-explain. They state their truth, they act on it, and they keep moving. There's a quiet authority in not needing to justify your life to anyone. It's not arrogance, it's self-respect. It's the understanding that your life belongs to you, not to the audience watching you. Every time you feel the urge to explain, remind yourself, I am not here to be understood, I am here to be authentic. That's the difference between those who live freely and those who live as prisoners of perception. Explanations also dilute impact. When you keep justifying, your message loses strength. Imagine a leader constantly explaining why they made a decision. Would you trust their command? No, you'd sense doubt, but when they speak once, clearly, and let their actions back it up, you believe in their certainty. Life works the same way. The more you explain, the weaker you sound. The less you explain, the more conviction your words carry. Conviction builds trust. Trust builds influence, and influence is the true measure of power. So the next time you feel urge to explain yourself, stop, breathe, remember who you are. If you've made a choice rooted in your truth, you don't need a courtroom defense. Let people misunderstand you. Let them talk. Let them doubt. None of that has the power to shake you unless you hand it to them. Silence is not weakness, it's self-assurance. And when you stop explaining, you stop asking for permission to live your life. You start giving yourself that permission fully and unapologetically. Energy is your most valuable currency, and yet most people spend it recklessly, pouring it into explanations that change absolutely nothing. Every time you explain yourself to someone who's already decided not to understand you, you are draining your energy into a bottomless pit, and that energy is not infinite. It's the same force you need for building your dreams, creating your future, and standing strong in your truth. When you give it away to fruitless explanations, you're not just wasting time. You're robbing yourself of momentum. Imagine how much more you could accomplish if you stopped trying to convince others of who you are. All the hours you've spent defending your choices, clarifying your intentions, proving your worth. What if that time had been invested into sharpening your skills, expanding your vision, or building the life you actually want? That's the tragedy of over-explaining. It doesn't just drain energy, it steals opportunities. Because the more time you spend justifying yourself, the less time you have to become the person you're trying so hard to explain. The truth is, explanations are rarely about clarity. They are about fear, fear of being misunderstood, fear of rejection, fear of being labeled as different. But here's the reality: you will be misunderstood, no matter how detailed your explanation is. Some people are determined not to see you for who you are, and when you keep trying to make them see, you are fighting a battle you can never win. You don't owe them your breath. You don't owe them your energy. What you owe is your commitment to keep moving forward. Think of the greatest innovators, the game changers, the disruptors of history. Do you think they paused to explain themselves to every critic along the way? No. If they had, their voices would have been drowned in endless debates instead of echoed through the ages. They understood that progress is fueled by focus, and focus requires conserving energy for what matters. They didn't waste their breath convincing the world. They let their work, their vision, and their results do the convincing. When you over-explain, you're essentially negotiating with your own value. You're saying, "I'm not sure I'm enough, so let me persuade you until you agree." But the irony is, the more you try to persuade, the less people believe you. Energy speaks louder than words. A person who knows their worth doesn't need to defend it. Everyone can feel it. And a person who doubts their worth tries endlessly to explain, and in the process convinces no one. That's why it's so crucial to conserve your energy. Put it into building, not begging, into creating, not convincing. So ask yourself, where is your energy going? Is it being drained into explanations that leave you empty, or is it being invested into actions that build your future? Every explanation you give is a transaction. You're giving away energy you'll never get back. Make sure it's worth it, because in the end, the only explanation that will ever matter is the life you've built. The results that speak louder than your words ever could. Silence has been misunderstood for far too long. People think silence is weakness, that it's surrender, that it's proof you have nothing to say. But silence, in truth, is one of the greatest strategies of the strong. It's not about having no answer, it's about choosing not to waste your answer on what doesn't deserve it. Power doesn't always need a voice. Sometimes power is simply the calmness in your eyes when everyone else is shouting. Sometimes silence is louder than the loudest words. When you choose silence, you take back control. Think about arguments. How often they escalate because both sides refuse to stop talking. Words thrown like weapons, each one sharper than the last. But the one who stays calm, who holds their ground without spilling unnecessary words, always wins. Not because they silence the other person, but because they never let chaos pull them out of alignment. Silence is discipline. It's refusing to be provoked into wasting your energy. It's a declaration that says, "I know who I am. I don't need to prove it." Silence also protects your vision. The more you talk about your goals, your plans, your moves, the more room you give people to doubt, to criticize, to discourage. But when you keep quiet, when you work in silence, there's no space for interference. Silence shields your dreams until they're strong enough to stand on their own. The world doesn't need to hear every step you take. The world needs to see the final result. And that result speaks far louder than any explanation could. There is also immense dignity in silence. When someone attacks you, insults you, spreads lies about you, the natural instinct is to defend yourself, to explain, to fire back. But when you stay silent, you rise above it. You show the world that their words cannot define you, cannot shake you. Silence in that moment is strength wrapped in grace. It is the posture of someone who refuses to be dragged into the mud, and ironically, it is silence that makes the attacker look smaller, weaker, and more desperate. Silence is not passive, it is powerful. It is the space in which ideas are born, clarity is found, and peace is maintained. When the world is loud, when everyone is busy making noise, silence becomes rare, and what is rare is always valuable. Leaders know this, creators know this. Even nature itself teaches this truth. The seed grows in silence. The night prepares the dawn in silence. The greatest transformations often happen in silence, unseen, until the moment of revelation. So when you choose silence, don't mistake it for doing nothing. You are building, you are growing, you are conserving energy for the battles that truly matter. You are reminding yourself that you don't need to roar to be a lion. You don't need to explain to be understood. You don't need to shout to be heard. Your presence, your actions, your results. Those will speak in a language far louder, far clearer, and far more permanent than any words ever could. So here's the truth you cannot ignore. Complaining keeps you small, explaining keeps you weak. But silence, resilience, and action, they make you unstoppable. Your life is not meant to be a defense case. It is not meant to be a string of excuses or a chorus of complaints. Your life is meant to be evidence, evidence of your strength, evidence of your courage, evidence of your vision at the end of the day. The world doesn't remember who whined the loudest or who explained the longest. The world remembers who stood tall, who moved forward, who turned struggle into strength and silence into power. So carry this with you, never complain, never explain. Let your actions roar louder than your words. Let your growth speak louder than your defenses. And let your life stand as the undeniable proof of everything you are capable of becoming. Because the greatest statement you'll ever make is the life you choose to live.